Chapter 5, Section 3, The French and Indian War. The main idea behind this section is that Britain's victory in the French and Indian War forced France to give up its North American colonies. Why that's important today is that British influence has spread across North America, though French populations and place names still exist here. Key terms and names throughout the section: French and Indian War, Albany Plan of Union, Battle of Quebec, Treaty of Paris, Pontiac's Rebellion, and Proclamation of 1763. Throughout the section, please make sure to have your Google Doc open so that you can complete the questions that go along with this video and the section, and make sure to submit through the Google Classroom when you have completed. One American story. The Frenchman, Charles de Langlade, and his family controlled the fur trade around what is now Green Bay, Wisconsin. In 1752, Charles commanded 250 Ottawa and Chippewa warriors in an attack on a village in present-day Ohio. His reason? The Miami people there had stopped trading with the French and were now trading with the British. Charles and his men destroyed the village's British trading post. This attack helped lead to the French and Indian War. This section describes the war in which French forces fought British forces in North America. Each side had Native American allies. France claims Western lands. As we learned in Chapter 4, the French were exploring the North American interior while English colonists were settling on the eastern coast. By the late 1600s, French explorers had claimed the Ohio River Valley, the Mississippi River Valley, and the entire Great Lakes region. These are the sections that have been shaded in for you. The French built their main settlements, Quebec and Montreal, along the St. Lawrence River in Canada. Here you can see the St. Lawrence River in Canada. They also built forts along the Great Lakes and along rivers draining into the Mississippi. By 1760, the French colony, New France, had a European population of about 80,000. By contrast, the British colonies had more than 1 million settlers. Some Europeans in New France were Jesuit priests. They wanted to convert Native Americans to Christianity. Other Europeans in New France worked as fur traders. Native Americans brought furs to French forts and exchanged them for goods such as iron pots and steel knives. Many French traders carried goods by canoe into remote parts of New France. Native American alliances. The English competed with the French for furs. Also, different Native American groups competed to supply furs to the Europeans. The fur trade created economic and military alliances between the Europeans and their Native American trading partners. The Huron and Algonquin peoples of the Great Lakes region were allied with the French. The Iroquois of Upper New York were often allied with the Dutch and later with the English. Alliances between Europeans and Native Americans led to their involvement in each other's wars. For example, by the mid-1600s, the Iroquois had trapped all the beavers in their own lands. To get more furs, they made war on their Huron and Algonquin neighbors, driving them west. Eventually, the Iroquois controlled an area ranging from Maine west to the Ohio Valley and north to Lake Michigan. Iroquois expansion threatened the French fur trade. In response, the French armed the Huron and Algonquin peoples to fight the Iroquois. The Iroquois were armed by the English. When France and England declared war on each other in Europe in 1689, French and English colonists in America also began to fight. With their Native American allies, they attacked each other's settlements and forts. During the 1700s, 2 more wars between France and England fueled wars in their colonies. Neither side won a clear victory in these wars. A final war, the French and Indian War, decided which nation would control the northern and eastern parts of North America. Conflict in the Ohio River Valley. The seeds for the French and Indian War were planted when British fur traders began moving into the Ohio River Valley in the 1750s. British land companies were also planning to settle colonists there. The French and their Native American allies became alarmed. To keep the British out of the valley, Charles de Langlade destroyed the village of Pickawillany and its British trading post. The British traders left, and the French built forts to protect the region linking their Canadian and Louisiana settlements. This upset the Virginia colony, which claimed title to the land. In 1753, the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia sent a small group of soldiers to tell the French to leave. Their leader was a 21-year-old major named George Washington. Washington reported the French commander's reply. A voice from the past. He told me the country belonged to them, that no Englishman had a right to trade upon them waters, and then he had orders to make every person prisoner that attempted it on the Ohio or the waters of it. George Washington. Virginia's lieutenant governor sent about 40 men to build a fort at the head of the Ohio River where Pittsburgh stands today. French and Native American troops seized that partially built fort in April of 1754 and completed it themselves. The French named it Fort Duquesne. The war begins and spreads. George Washington was on his way to defend Fort Duquesne when he learned of its surrender. He and his men pushed on and built another small fort, Fort Necessity. Following Washington's surprise attack on a French force, the French and their allies attacked Fort Necessity on July 3, 1753. After Washington surrendered, the French let him march back to Virginia. The French and Indian War had begun. This war became part of the 7 Years' War, a worldwide struggle for an empire between France and Great Britain. While Washington was surrendering Fort Necessity, representatives from the British colonies and the Iroquois nations were meeting at Albany, New York. The colonists wanted the Iroquois to fight with them against the French. The Iroquois would not commit to this alliance. Benjamin Franklin, who admired the union of the 6 Iroquois nations, suggested that the colonies band together for defense. His Albany Plan of Union was the first formal proposal to unite the colonies. The plan called for each colony to send representatives to a Grand Council. This council would be able to collect taxes, raise armies, make treaties, and start new settlements. The leaders in Albany supported Franklin's plan, but the colonial legislatures in each individual colony later defeated it because they did not want to give up control of their own affairs. This is the end of Part 1 of Chapter 5, Section 3. Please make sure you've been able to answer all questions that relate to this part of the video, and make sure to complete it after you have finished Part 2 and submit through the Google Classroom. Once you've done that, we will see you in class tomorrow.